Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled That Corner Lot, posted by user Dan Ran Fast on our own subreddit r/Ripe Stories. Hey everyone, I have a new story for you. This is not my story, but a former coworker story about his parents. So one day I ran into a former coworker and we went to get coffee and talk about what was going on since I left work. He said the usual and told me about a few Karens. I said he should put it on Reddit and he said he had heard about it, but he didn't have the time to. I told him about a story I read. He said he had a good one about his parents, and after telling me the story, I asked if I could write it up and post it on Reddit. He said go for it, so after a few calls to clear up a few details, here we go. Sorry, it is kind of long, but worth the read, so here we go, also posted on r/Ripe Stories and Neighbors from Hell. The cast is OP, coworker, this is his story about his parents, OPPs, OP parents, OPM, OP's mom, and OPD, OP's dad. Then EN for entitled Neighbor 1 and 2 attached at the hip, and ENK entitled Neighbor 1 and 2 kids. Backstory: this started during the winter around 2014 after Christmas. So OP's parents have a very large home and we're talking about downsizing and getting a smaller home because all the kids are grown and gone. They were talking to some of their friends about it. Well, one friend said they knew about a friend of theirs that might be interested in selling their 3-bedroom home and would set up a meeting with them. The couple were getting up in their years and couldn't take care of their home anymore and was about to put their home on the market and move into a retirement home. OP's parents liked their home, so a deal was made and everything started falling into place. OP's parents put their home up for sale and the elderly couple said that they would need 2 months before they could move into a retirement home. OP's parents said that would be no problem because they were in the process of selling their home and they had a few people interested and were waiting to see who would make an offer. Well, offer was made and their home was sold. They had to put some of their stuff in storage, sold/donated the stuff they didn't want and moved into a hotel for about a month. The elderly couple got into a retirement home after a month and a half. OP's parents had a general contractor go in and make needed repairs and then moved in. And now to the story. Now, this home is on a corner lot. This corner lot is bigger than the rest of the lots in this housing tract. Important for later, it has a very large backyard and has/had a wooden gym set. So OP's parents said that it needed to go and called one of their friends and offered it to them, since they have young kids. So a few weeks later they come over and take the thing apart and loaded it on a trailer, said thank you and left. Now it is the start of spring. One day that it didn't rain, OPM saw a few kids come running past their house and towards their backyard. OPM hears a loud scream and these kids run back down the street. About 10 minutes later, there's someone banging on the door and trying to kill the doorbell. OPM opens the door and there are 2 mothers with a bunch of kids behind them. OPM asked what they needed and they said they wanted to talk to the elderly couple about what happened to the wooden gym set that was in the backyard. OPM said that she and OPD now own this home. EN1 cut her off and said that she didn't believe her and that she must be a caregiver or something and demanded to see the elderly couple. Again, OPM said that she and OPD owned this home. EN1 cut her off again and said whatever, and that the wooden gym set belongs to the neighborhood and that they had no right to have it removed, and what are their kids going to do now? OPM said that they didn't want or need it. EN2 cuts in and said that it needed to be replaced for the good of the neighborhood and with a bigger one so the kids have something to play on during the summer. OPM said that is not going to happen, and since the ENs were being rude/demanding, OPM just shut the door in their face. They screamed that they were going to call the police for theft and sue them. About an hour later, the police knock on OPM's door and want to know what is going on with the wooden gym set. So OPM invited the officers in and explained to the officers that they now own this home and had the gym set taken out because they have other plans for the backyard and the gym set was in the way. OPM explained that she didn't know what arrangements the previous owners had with the ENs and ENKs, but that was not her concern, and the way the ENs just came up to her door pounding and screaming at her was not how to make friends or be good neighbors. Also, there was nothing in the deed/title about the gym set belonging to the neighborhood. They talked some more and the officers thanked her for her time and said that if the two ENs come back to call and they will come and deal with them. It seems they have had run-ins before with the police and are well known to them. So now that the wooden gym set is out of the way, OPPs can get some real improvements done. So what better way to deal with hot summers? You got it, put in an in-ground pool and hot tub, and what better time to do this but in the springtime. So the digging begins. Since their house is on a corner lot, all the work is on the side that cannot be seen by the ENs, besides they are at the other end of the street screaming at those neighbors to set up their above ground pools so the ENs and their ENKs can go swimming when it starts to get hot. Now OPPs are friends with their next door neighbors and the ones at the end of the street. They told them that this goes on every summer and that the wooden gym set was a magnet for the ENKs and that they were very loud and demanding of the previous owners, feeding them lunch, dinners and snacks. They hated the ENs and those kids, but the ENs would just bully them. So OPM told the neighbors not to give in to their demands and that they had a plan. So the hole is dug, big hole, and all the workers are staying out of sight so the ENs don't see what is going on. A brick wall is also being put up along the back of the property, still leaving room to complete the pool and hot tub. This wall will be about 10 feet tall with a special topping, so if anyone tries to get over it, they won't be able to get a grip. They also built a wall between their neighbors, including between the two houses with metal gates and one inside, so all the neighbors have to do is walk out their back door and through the inside gate. All the gates installed have spikes on top and have special locks. Now the pool is done and the progress on the wall is moving along. When it is done, it will be about 3 feet from the sidewalk. The water trucks have been and gone and the pool is full, pumps running, lights are something else and they can change colors. Great for night parties. Now, since OP's parents like camping, one of the things the wall will block is the spot for their camping trailer on the side of their house. There are 2 large gates that open, so OPD can back the trailer in and lock the gates. There is also a wall between the pool and parking spot for the camper, also with a spiked gate. For the first time this spring, the ENs take notice of some changes that have been made. At first they are staying back because they are still trying to bully the neighbors at the other end of the street to get them to get their pools set up. You know, summer right around the corner and that water needs to get warm, right? OPPs are just counting the days till the ENs come knocking asking about when they are going to put that wooden gym set back up. Well, they are in for a surprise. Now it is the beginning of summer and it is getting warm. Entitled neighbors are pissed that the neighbors at the other end of the street haven't put up their pools and making it known how mad they are and having a meltdown. It is going to get hot, so what are they going to do? They need those pools up. Now OP's parents are having a housewarming and a neighborhood pool party and only invited those on the corners by them and those neighbors at the other end of the street. All really good neighbors now, it is going to be a potluck kind of thing. On the day of the pool party, everyone that is invited is heading over in their swim gear and towels with food. Everyone is having a good time swimming. The barbecue is in mass production with steaks, hot dogs and burgers. Well, the ENs come out and go to the neighbors at the end of the street and would you know it, they are not home and no pool either. They are mad and then they smell the barbecue and start backing up the street. The closer they get, the stronger the barbecue smell is and the sound of people having fun. The sound of kids playing and having fun can be heard. Now the entitled neighbors think that the gym set is back and go around the side of the house only to find that the wall goes all the way around and they cannot see anything. The sound of people talking is being heard and it sounds like everyone is having a good time and then the sound of kids splashing in a pool. they quickly go up to the front door and start knocking and ringing the doorbell. Now, OPD is no stranger to the entitled neighbors because they tried to bully him into putting back the gym set. So OPD opens the door and asked what they wanted. They first tried to demand to know why such a big wall, second why they were not invited. Third was they were going home to get their kids and come and use the pool. OPD said the wall is mandatory by city code when there is a pool. Second, you burned that bridge a long time ago. Third, no, you won't show up with your kids and accept to use our pool. At this point, the entitled neighbors started to protest and OPD just shut the door. The EN said they were calling the cops again. So about an hour and a half later, the cops show up at OPP's door. OPD invites them in and can see the ENs and their kids across the street all dressed in swimsuits with towels. The officers were led to the backyard and were greeted by everyone. OPM said hello and asked if they liked what they had done to the backyard. The officers said it was one hell of an improvement. OPM asked if they would like something to eat and have a sit while they talked about the entitled neighbors. Both officers said yes and thank you and went off duty for lunch and talked about the ENs and their kids. Other neighbors told the officers what the ENs had been doing and that this was the last time they would let them bully them. No more pools, no more feeding them. They were done with them and their kids. The officers said they understood and couldn't give any details, but the EN and kids were well known for getting into trouble. They also said that a report would be made, so if need be, they could request a restraining order against them. After about 30 minutes, the officers said they had to get back on duty, said thank you again for lunch and to enjoy your pool. OPD and OPM walked them to the door and bid them a good day. OPD and M stood in the doorway and could still see the ENs and kids still waiting across the street. OPD and M waved to the officers and closed the door. OPM went back to the party while OPD was still watching from the window. The ENs ran up to the officers, they talked for a few minutes. OPD said he heard the ENs start screaming and the officers driving away with them just standing there, the kids crying and the ENs just standing in the middle of the street trying to figure out what to do next. They had lost the gym set and now could not bully their neighbors into letting them use their pool and feeding them and their kids. I think it just hit them that they would have to now deal with their own kids for the summer. The look on their faces was priceless. By the way, there is a spot set aside in the back corner away from the pool for a wooden gym set when OP's parents have grandkids. Now that, my friends, is karma. And thank you very much Dan Ran Fast for sharing this awesome story. However, I would just like to remind everyone, in case you have any interesting stories to share of your own, please head over to r/ripestories on Reddit and share your own story there. If it is a nice story, there's a good chance that I will read it in a video. Currently, I really enjoy reading stories about landlords and neighbors and of course always about mother-in-laws. In addition, if you enjoy the content that I post daily on my channel, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to go the extra mile in terms of supporting the channel. Thank you so much in advance, it really means a lot to me. And the next one is titled, Got pissy and damaged my car, got her a $2,000 fine, her car got crushed and her tenancy put into question. I live in a maisonette house in the UK, a 4 in a block, and the only parking is on the street. I recently got my license and put onto a parent's insurance to keep costs low. That is where this story starts. I have this neighbor who is an awful driver, crashed at least 2 cars and who also fly tip, abandon rubbish in their gardens, blocking our fire escape. This is all relevant information. I parked my car outside one day on street parking and she pulled up right behind me, blasted her horn and started swearing at me to move out of her space, opened my door and threatened to smash my car up. I locked my car and went inside ignoring her. I looked out the window and she parked her car on my bumper. then placed another car she owns on my other bumper, causing slight paint damage and making sure I couldn't get to work the next day. This continued for a few weeks, her parking right on my car or parking her 2 cars over 4 spaces. Keep in mind, I own my house and she rents hers, meaning we have parking rights over her due to having the parking passes. I had enough of this after a while. I ran the license plate for both of her cars through a website that tells you the MOT status of a vehicle. Car number 1 MOT'd, car number 2 MOT expired. What this basically means is the car cannot be driven or even be on public land. And I had the information I wanted. I called up the council whose authority it is to report the car and told them about an abandoned vehicle parked outside my house on restricted parking times. They got back to me and told me they had passed it on to the police. I then decided to phone her landlord about her fly tipping in the back garden. He came, spoke to me, and my parents investigated and put her lease into contest because she had blocked our escape route and left the stuff abandoned. I kept calling about the car every day for about a month until one day she moved the car to another car park around the corner, again onto public land. I reported it again, and this time with evidence it had moved. The council arrived that day and stuck a ticket on it, saying that they were made aware the vehicle was abandoned and the owner had to contact them to get it moved. Today I woke up and saw a note taped on the car saying that the vehicle will be crushed in 7 days if she doesn't respond to them, and the car has an outstanding fine of £1,800 and it will increase if this action is taken. Meaning she calls them or it gets crushed. Safe to say, I don't think she will damage my car or swear at me again. I also don't think in the future she will ignore the council's calls for her to respond to them. Update: I am very happy to report that the car of this dumb witch got actually crushed. That is what you call delicious karma, my friends. I hope you have a good one. I am so damn happy. Washington State. Neighbor is currently video recording me and has a camera directly pointed at my bedroom window. What can I do? I spoke with police here and they said that he legally has the right to record anything he wants. However, I am sure I have some right to privacy. When the police visited my neighbor regarding the camera, my neighbor did move the camera ever so slightly toward the street. Now, a month later, the camera is directly pointing into my bedroom window again. My home is about 50 feet away from his. It is clear that this is where it is recording. He also threatened me when I have asked personally to move the camera, and he replied with, "My house, my rules," as well as a mention of a recording of me calling him the N-word, I didn't, on said camera. I just want it pointed away from my bedroom window. I'm sure he can hear what goes on in the bedroom as well. What are my options? Am I allowed to put up a board on my property blocking the camera view from my window? Honestly, that is about all I have left in the tank. And a user in the comments said, so this guy has a camera that is 50 feet away but capable of picking up audio of you in your own home, and it has night vision capabilities, and he's going to report you to the FBI, and he has told you all of this? Look, it sounds to me like this guy is crazy, but I really doubt any of the things he has told you are actually true. I mean, what exactly does he even plan to report to the FBI? He probably does not have any audio recording equipment or night vision powerful enough to be worth anything from 50 feet away, through a window no less. Pull your curtains shut when it is dark out and otherwise ignore the lunatic unless he becomes legitimately threatening. And OP then responded, there is a side issue that he has already been approached by police about. He has an LRAD and an outside audio system pointed at our home where he blasts random sounds at night and into the early morning. Our code enforcement officer looked into the problem and found out the guy who used to live in our home sold it due to the sounds during all hours of the night. He tells our neighbors it is the railroad and the government flying drones over our homes. He told us it was our mortgage company at first trying to make us move. He is dangerous in the sense that he is mentally incapable of making the right decisions. And even though this guy sounds insanely crazy, it seems like he really does not want to have any neighbors, considering the old one already moved out due to all the craziness. If you had such an insane and creepy neighbor, what would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is an update to the camera story. So a ton has happened since I last posted. I had mentioned in the comments that my neighbor had been basically using sound terrorism to harass us. I began writing in a log of each event that occurred with the time, the date, the description. If I called the police, I did for almost everyone, and it began to show an alarming pattern. He was playing sounds at random times of the night every single night. After each major event of sounds, I would drop off a written statement to my local police station for the code enforcement officer. The city was now looking at charging him for noise violations based on my complaints. I took my 3-page log and copies of 7 signed statements and finally had enough of the police taking their time to work on the case against my neighbor. I dropped $95 on paperwork to begin an anti-harassment order against my neighbor. I made sure to explicitly mention the camera pointed in my bedroom window and the ongoing noise. He was served a temporary order that very day by the local police, and sure enough, the noises ramped up. Before our court date to discuss the anti-harassment order, we were subpoenaed to be witnesses for the noise violation. We also brought the former owner of the home as well as the person who lived on the other side of my neighbor as witnesses to his noise-making capabilities. My neighbor never showed to the court date and at that point had $1,250 pending in tickets. His lawyer showed up an hour late and the judge graciously accepted his plea to move the date a month forward. Disappointment. Then the date for the anti-harassment order came. Once again, my neighbor did not show and his lawyer begged for more time to look over the case. The judge was just and said that everyone has a right to defend their First Amendment rights, so he moved the court date for a month later as well. Disappointment number 2. The noises are continuing on the regular at this point and we are trying to record them as best as we can on our phones. It was really hard to do because the noises were short and happened at random times in the middle of the night. The date for the second anti-harassment hearing arrived and finally we saw our neighbor come through the courtroom and sit in the back. When it was our turn to explain the situation, we made sure to present our call log, our statements, and videos that we had as evidence against our neighbor. Our neighbor's lawyer tried to get us to give up the call log because he mentioned he was not aware of it before our court date. The judge basically told the lawyer to go F himself. The lawyer's only defense for my neighbor was that he worked long hours and could not possibly be awake in the middle of the night to terrorize us, and that conversely we were the ones making the noises. We then brought up the fact that our neighbor had a security camera pointed directly at our home and he should have plenty of evidence to prove we were indeed the noisemakers. The judge very confidently approved our anti-harassment order, stating no more noises, no more cameras in our windows or at us in general, and our neighbor is not allowed within 25 feet of us. He immediately moved the camera pointing in our bedroom window to being completely flush with the side of their house. Awesome. This was great news. We finally achieved some peace. And then the date for the noise violation trial came. Just his lawyer showed up and made a deal with the city lawyer that 1 ticket would be paid in exchange for no appeal to our anti-harassment order and to throw out 2 tickets. It sucked, but they took the deal, whatever, and all seemed well. Then, about a month after the anti-harassment order kicked in, the noises began again. And the camera began to slowly point into our garage, back in the direction toward the bedroom window. This time, the police noticed something more alarming. A red light was going off in the tinted window directly below the camera on the outside of my neighbor's house. They shone their flashlight and spotted a lens. My neighbor had a camera inside his window pointed at my bedroom window the entire time the order was in place and long before that. The officers told us to stay quiet, don't be alarmed, but they now were actively seeking a search warrant for the property to seize any noise-making equipment and to take down the cameras as he had broken the order. The next weekend my neighbor was arrested and we got to sit outside on the front porch while they disassembled the cameras and seized speakers after speaker, megaphones, etc. from my neighbor's home. They said he had 4 foot of insulation surrounding the room with the camera and the front door of the home was completely barred shut. Unfortunately, they just seized the equipment and will eventually give it back. My neighbor was out of jail the next day, and since they did not have a search warrant for his hard drives, they could not place any voyeurism charges despite my insistence. They even mentioned they saw me and my husband on a laptop of his. I am just happy that the noises have stopped, and as far as I know, no more hidden cameras. I'm just glad I could update this crazy situation for you guys. I am sure I am not out of the woods yet. And guys, I gotta say, this is probably the story with the most updates I've ever seen on legal advice, so please stay put. But before you do, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments, and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is update number 2 to the camera story. It is close to a year now that we have dealt with the worst of my neighbor. Almost a year ago, we achieved the success of having an anti-harassment order granted. That summer, he was arrested for harassing us, and he stopped with the cameras and the noises. But something was brewing behind those closed doors. Around early November 2017, we had a knock on the door one evening. It was an officer asking if we had heard gunshots in the area. We had not. Soon into our conversation, he mentioned it was our neighbor who called and complained. They were aware of the situation and assured us that despite the situation, they have to respond to all gunshot calls. I was honestly not surprised that after all the quiet, something started up again. The next day, a police cruiser parked across the street from our home. I was expecting someone to knock again and ask about gunshots, but no one came to the door, and the officer sat across the street watching my home for over an hour. The next day, I emailed an officer I had been working with previously regarding the situation. The officer told me that my neighbor had been calling 911 every single day on my address for gunshots. By the time I got an email back, it had been a week. Every single day, this man was coming home from work, eating dinner, tending to daily life, and calling 911 on us for shooting guns. The officer said he would look into seeing if this counted as harassment through a third party. The new year came and went, and in early January I emailed the officer back, and his response was simply that the city prosecutor wanted to set up a phone conference to discuss the plan going forward. The city prosecutor mentioned to me that at that point in time, my neighbor had still been calling 911 every day, even the morning of the conference call. She said they contacted all of my other neighbors to see if they heard any gunshots and asked if they would testify that they have not heard anything come from our property. They also planned to charge my neighbor with some counts of harassment and wrongfully utilizing emergency services. Part of his deal with the arrest over the summer involved him able to avoid jail time by having good behavior, and they are looking for their time back essentially. His arraignment date came and his pre-trial was set. Came and went, it is being continued until next month. I am worried that he will try to continue this case until the end of time. Our anti-harassment order expires soon, and we will have to drag him to court once again to renew it and spend more money. Things are starting to feel pretty dim again, and honestly, the recent continuance knocked the wind out of my sails. All I can do until I am called as a witness/victim is wait. And guys, as you can see, the story is still not over, and this one is really an odyssey. And please let me know your predictions here. Do you think the story will have a happy ending? Let me know in the comments. Update number 3 to the camera story. Remember how I said that the city prosecutor was all on board to help me finish this? Well, things have changed. The second pre-trial after the case was continued is coming up. I contacted the prosecutor to ask why the case was continued. Apparently, the prosecutor went on an extended leave of absence and gave the case to another prosecutor. Okay, no big deal. I was given the contact of the new prosecutor and emailed them to check for an update. However, no response. 2 weeks have gone by and 2 emails were sent with no response from the prosecutor. I even contacted the prosecutor's assistant and no one has gotten back to me. Dead silence. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. I don't know what to do because the original prosecutor was so gung-ho about finishing this case, and now I cannot get a hold of anyone. This is so uncommon because when I had questions before, usually I would get a phone call with an answer and at least an email response. My neighbor keeps adding trash cans to the fence line. These are large heavy-duty cans with lids. I really don't know what it is about, but it is making me extremely uneasy. This whole situation is seriously giving me anxiety and I just want it to be over. Radio silence from the only people who are trying to help me is making things so much worse. What should I do? Update number 4 to the camera story, supposedly the final update. So it is all over. The prosecutor called me and said of course they are not wanting to plead guilty to all the charges, and instead of jail time, his attorney wants 30 days of house arrest, which is what he does already, just sits in his house and never leaves. The trial was pushed to July and we are moving out of state around that time. I told the prosecutor that we would not be here to be witnesses. I have no soul left or fight in me. Thanks for all your help everyone. The justice system has failed us. Update number 5 about the camera story. I lied about the final update. Hello all, thanks for listening and following this ridiculous thread of events. My neighbor pled guilty to 3 of 19 counts using emergency services inappropriately and one other charge they won't explain. He cannot talk to me or my husband and cannot bother anyone on this property ever. He is also required to have a mental health evaluation, which he was supposed to go do on his own when this started rolling. The result of breaking any of these rules will hopefully be jail time. However, now is the new dilemma. He was outside today looking at our brand new for sale sign on the house. Not kidding, and maybe this is just paranoia, but my realtor called and said someone had scheduled an appointment to view the home this evening at 6 p.m. We have not told him about the situation because honestly we thought nothing was going to come out of this and we had lost. Now, the new people that will be moving in when we sell are protected, but we figured to let sleeping dogs lie and let our neighbor be the first one to mess things up. We were put in the same situation with the last owner of the home, and it is not illegal in WA to not disclose these things. I think my neighbor is trying to tour my home. I have no problem with him wanting to buy the home, but I'm not interested in him snooping. I know my realtor will be monitoring him, but a part of me is wondering if he will be trying to take photos of my stuff, etc. I have partially lost my mind even considering that man will be in our home. So, what can I do? My husband was thinking about parking down the street when the appointment time was and making sure. I suggested a nanny cam, both of which are probably insane to do. I am afraid that telling my realtor will also result in a nightmare. Edit, it was not my neighbor that toured the home, thank God, but now we have a Nest camera set up so we will know. Update number 6 to the camera story, and this is the final one. So, my neighbor decided to throw up some nice floodlights pointed over his fence right at our bedroom window right after his court date. In that time, we have sold the home and moved to an apartment in transition to our new destination far, far away. He turned on the floodlights every night at 10 p.m. and they would clearly shine through the bedroom window, even with the blackout film, and really shone through our guest bedroom where my mom stayed for a week to visit. Police came out and took pictures and drove by several nights to confirm they were still up. Part of his plea deal is to not commit similar incidences and further harass us. This comes into play later. I called the police and they ended up serving me papers saying I was required to be a witness in court. Court day came and they were asking for jail time, and my neighbor's attorney asked for a continuance because he did not have time to review the new info. So they granted it. Second week comes around, we rescheduled for a special hearing with a pro tem judge. Mistake. Today was the hearing and the second time we all had to take off work to show up. The judge immediately told the city prosecutor, since she did not have a formal briefing, that he was not familiar with the case and that it would not be heard today. Typically, the judge who does the city's cases is well informed, and the prosecutor objected to this, saying it is not a requirement, you knew what was on the docket today. The judge further mentioned that because specific charges were not filed and they were just asking for jail time given back onto the jail time they waived at the previous hearing, he was not interested in doing this today. He read the plea deal and said that similar incidences is too vague and should be thrown out, and he didn't know how shining lights on our property was similar to whatever he got in trouble for in the first place. Then he mentioned he had court in Seattle in 2 hours and was not interested in hearing my testimony today. Also, since we will be gone by October, he did not see the issue in why we were even there. Since we moved, we cannot be harassed anymore, so problem solved. I broke down in tears of sheer frustration. The prosecutor said I don't have to be a witness anymore and they would talk to the usual judge in the case. And to keep in touch with her, when my neighbor walked out, he did a very dramatic prayer, hands in the air, like he knew he won. I give up again. We are leaving. It is over. I will never get my day in court. I will never know what I did to this man to make him harass me so deeply. I will never get 2 years of my life back. Edit: the only good thing out of this is the police report that we got after they raided his home last summer. The dude is a weirdo, sexual deviant even in the eyes of a very liberal, accepting Washingtonian like me. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.